Tonight, a political earthquake has rocked Washington, sending shockwaves through the nation's capital and far beyond. The Supreme Court has just overturned the Trump-era tariffs, bringing an end to a years-long trade war that has deeply impacted the American economy and altered the global trade landscape. In a decisive 6-3 ruling, the justices declared that the power to set taxes on imports belongs solely to Congress, not the president, striking down the broad executive authority that had been used to justify sweeping tariffs on foreign goods. Outside the court, crowds of protesters erupted in celebration, waving signs and cheering, while inside, legal experts and officials hailed the decision as a landmark moment for the separation of powers and a reaffirmation of constitutional checks and balances. For millions of Americans, factory workers, farmers, and business owners alike, this decision marks a turning point. Many have struggled with rising costs, shifting markets, and uncertainty about the future. Now, everything could change. The tariffs, originally intended to protect American industries from foreign competition, also triggered a wave of retaliatory measures from other countries. This led to higher prices for everyday goods, supply chain disruptions, and significant challenges for American exporters trying to compete abroad. Now, business leaders are scrambling to adjust their strategies. Lawmakers are locked in heated debates over the next steps, and families across the country are left wondering how this will affect their wallets, their jobs, and the cost of living. The Supreme Court's ruling dismantles a key pillar of the previous administration's America First policy, forcing a national reckoning on the future of trade. Will prices finally drop for consumers? Will industries that relied on protection survive in a more open market? The uncertainty is palpable. On the world stage, America's trading partners are watching closely. This decision could reshape alliances, alter trade agreements, and redefine the country's global standing for years to come. The answers to these pressing questions are just beginning to emerge as the nation absorbs the shock and significance of this historic Supreme Court decision. Tonight, we break down what this means for every American. No matter where you live or what you do, this ruling will touch your life in ways both big and small. The Supreme Court's landmark decision is being called a turning point in American constitutional law. Many legal scholars agree it's the most significant check on executive power in decades, reshaping the balance between the branches of government. The majority opinion found that Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act gave the president too much unchecked authority, violating the Constitution's separation of powers and undermining the role of Congress. The ruling redraws the line between Congress and the president, reaffirming that only Congress can set taxes and regulate trade, as intended by the framers of the Constitution. This is a fundamental reset of checks and balances, curbing the recent trend of presidents bypassing Congress on major policy decisions, especially those with far-reaching economic consequences. The legal challenge was brought by businesses crippled by tariffs, who argued that the national security justification was merely a pretext for imposing economic restrictions without proper oversight or debate. The dissent warned that this decision could tie future presidents' hands in real crises, potentially limiting swift action. But the majority insisted the democratic oversight and accountability must always come first. For Americans, this means that future trade wars and tariff decisions will require open debate and congressional approval, not just a single executive order from the White House, but a transparent process involving elected representatives. Ultimately, it's a return to traditional governance, restoring the constitutional balance of power, and marking a pivotal moment for presidential authority in the United States. To grasp today's impact, we must revisit the origins of the Trump-era tariffs. Launched in 2018 to protect American steel and aluminum, the tariffs aim to revive industries and jobs lost to foreign competition. Using Section 232, the administration bypassed Congress, imposing sweeping tariffs on steel, aluminum, and hundreds of billions in Chinese goods. Supporters saw hope in reopened mills and new jobs. Critics warned tariffs were taxes on consumers, raising prices and hurting exporters. Farmers suffered as China retaliated, devastating rural economies. The trade wars divided the nation. Some communities thrived, others struggled with layoffs and lost markets. The economic data was mixed, with clear winners and losers. Ultimately, the turmoil and constitutional questions brought the issue to the Supreme Court. Today's decision ends an era of executive-driven trade wars. The debate over America's economic future now returns to Congress. The Supreme Court's ruling rebalances power between the White House and Congress on trade, For decades, Congress ceded authority to the president for speed and flexibility, but the Trump tariffs pushed those limits. Now, presidents can no longer unilaterally impose broad tariffs under national security claims. Trade policy must return to Congress, requiring hearings, debate, and votes. Critics say this weakens the president's hand in global negotiations. Supporters argue it ensures diverse voices and prevents overreach. Trade wars, like traditional wars, now require congressional approval. This shift means slower, more transparent policymaking, but with greater accountability. The court's mandate: trade policy must reflect the nation's interests, not just one leader's agenda. America's approach to global commerce has fundamentally changed. The Supreme Court's decision will ripple through every sector of the economy. For manufacturers and retailers, lower material costs could boost sales and jobs, while importers celebrate relief from tariffs. But steel and aluminum workers, who saw a revival under tariff protection, now face renewed foreign competition and uncertainty. Businesses that shifted supply chains to avoid tariffs must decide whether to return or adapt to new realities. Internationally, allies like Canada and the EU welcome the ruling as a return to predictable rules-based trade. They hope for stronger alliances and resolution of long-standing disputes. The decision vindicates their stance against the tariffs and opens the door to renewed cooperation. For America, the challenge is balancing global engagement with support for vulnerable industries. The world is watching how the U.S. will lead in this new era. Wall Street erupted in cheers following the Supreme Court's decision, with stocks surging to new highs almost instantly. Investors celebrated the end of trade war uncertainty, seeing it as a green light for renewed growth and stability in the markets. Companies that rely heavily on imports saw immediate gains, as the cost of bringing goods into the country dropped overnight. The market quickly anticipated lower costs, higher profits, and a more predictable business environment for the months ahead. For Main Street, the impact will be slower, but no less meaningful. Families and small businesses have been feeling the pinch for years. Tariffs acted as a hidden tax, quietly raising the prices of everything from groceries to household essentials. These higher prices on everyday goods have strained family budgets and made it harder for many to make ends meet. As tariffs disappear, families should gradually see relief in their monthly expenses, with more room in their budgets for other needs. However, this transition won't happen overnight. It will take time for lower prices to reach store shelves and for families to truly feel the difference. Yet, in America's industrial towns, anxiety is growing as the protective shield for local mills and factories vanishes. The end of tariffs threatens jobs and the survival of small businesses that have depended on these protections for years. Many owners now face tough choices, unsure if they can weather the coming changes. The ruling brings fresh opportunity for many, opening doors for entrepreneurs and expanding markets for innovative companies. But it also presents real challenges for those in industries that once relied on government protection to survive. America's economic health now depends on finding the right balance, embracing the benefits of free trade while also providing support and retraining for workers facing tough global competition and shifting job markets. The celebration on Wall Street is real, but it's tempered by uncertainty and concern on Main Street, where the future feels less certain. As the nation moves forward, Americans from all walks of life must navigate this new reality together, finding ways to support each other and build a stronger future. The world reacted swiftly to Washington's news. Allies in Europe, Canada, and Japan welcomed the decision as a victory for free trade and a chance to repair strained relationships. The removal of tariffs is seen as a step toward renewed transatlantic cooperation and a rules-based order. Diplomats are eager to re-engage with the U.S. on trade issues, hoping for stability and partnership. China's response was cautious. Officials see this as a U.S. legal matter, not a shift in competition. Rivals now face a more complex U.S. trade policy, shaped by Congress rather than the president alone. Foreign governments must adapt to a new, less predictable American process. The global chess game continues, but the rules have changed. With the Supreme Court's ruling, Congress must now decide the future of American trade policy. Lawmakers face a choice: return to pre-tariff free trade, or craft new targeted laws with clear limits and oversight. The immediate challenge is managing the fallout from the sudden end of tariffs, balancing consumer relief with support for vulnerable industries. Lobbyists and interest groups are already flooding Capitol Hill, pushing for their priorities. Building consensus will require compromise among free traders, nationalists, farmers, and manufacturers. Any new framework must define when and how tariffs can be used, ensuring democratic accountability. The debate will be fierce and consequential, shaping the economy for a generation. Congress now holds the power and the responsibility to chart America's trade future. The nation watches as lawmakers set the course for a new era. The Supreme Court's decision closes the chapter on president-led trade wars and returns power to Congress. This is a chance to build a smarter, fairer trade policy, one that embraces global markets but supports American workers. The challenge is to balance the benefits of free trade with the need to invest in communities left behind. America can now re-engage with allies to shape the rules of the global economy, addressing new challenges together. The future of trade will be written by all Americans, through their representatives, not by executive decree. The debate ahead will be tough, but it's an opportunity to build a policy that reflects our values and secures prosperity. The Supreme Court's ruling is not an end, but a beginning. This is a pivotal moment to redefine America's place in the world for a new generation.